Hello and welcome to the A&P. I am Alex Johansson and my co-host Patrick McCallum. Patrick.
Hello everyone, how are you getting on?
We're having logical discussions about the state of the world. Let's get into it, brother. Heyo, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all, buddy. So what have you for me today?
Well, I thought it was what you had for me.
Well, yeah, I think you sent me the video, then I sent it back. Yeah, I think we both kind of stumbled across the same video, didn't we?
Oh, probably the way that it went. It looks like Amy's house. It is Nick Freitas. Is an American politician, Republican. Has been in the Virginia House of Delegates. Had an unsuccessful run for the Senate and Virginia's 7th Congressional District. Out of Chico, California, like he's a boxer. Out of Chico, California, in the red trunks.
Interesting young man, actually. Very interesting young man.
Yeah, he's not all that young. He was born in '79, so he's of an age.
Compared to us, he's young.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah,
he is an of an age. So
he is.
And I like that he served as the operations director for service disabled veteran-owned companies. That's a really, really cool little thing. So I figure we'll start this one out with a video from Amy's house, and it will identify his qualifications to make the statements that he's making. So we'll go ahead and let him cook on that one, and then we'll punch up to a couple of time hacks to discuss the relevant portions of this podcast that we're reviewing today. Right?
Yes.
So go ahead, Nick, and cook.
So I've been through infantry training, airborne training, air assault training, EMT training, sniper training, ranger school, special forces qualification course, SFAUC, which is special forces urban assault course. I've also been through SFARDC, which is a premier close quarters battle and hostage rescue course. I've been through, close air support training, and I've been to combat.
Did you know that Dave Smith opened for Skankfest?
So all of those things to say that he has trained for years and years and years and years to give him the what could only be said to be an amazing amount of professional acumen, right?
Yes.
Just an amazing amount, right? So he understands war and operations and creating the orders in which people will go through those paces, right? Yeah. And in special forces, you get a bigger theater-wide view of perspective based on intelligence recovered when you're in a theater of operations. Like, you just have more information than other folks based on the breadth of your function, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is the next point you said we needed to get cooking. So let's see what old Nick has to say.
No practical price for being wrong.
Right.
And that's another important factor that I consider when I listen to somebody talking about something is what is the price they pay for being wrong, because the threshold is much different. The consequences are much different. And excuse me, it impacts the way that people make decisions. But yeah, to your point, there's something even more, potentially catastrophic when now you're making decisions for millions of other people and you can impose your will using legal force, right? That's a very different world.
Yes, for sure.
So that's like a force doctrine thing, right? If you can use the government to do the gun to the head thing, right? So I remember when Jordan Peterson was in opposition to Bill C-16 up in Canada, the hate speech law.
Many years ago, yeah.
Right. So Jordan Peterson said, look, what happens if someone violates this? And they're like, well, you just have to pay a fine. Okay. He said, so what you're saying is you're going to incarcerate people for saying bad words. And they're like, no. And he said, what happens when you don't pay a fine? And they're like, you get incarcerated. So he said, you're going to incarcerate people for saying bad words is what you're going to do. So, but this is the same kind of thing. There is a huge backlash if there's millions of people are going to be affected by a decision, right?
Yes.
I wanted to just move on now into the details and the brass tacks of the war in Gaza over the last 18 months, because there's been a lot of opinions offered up by what you could say are people who read about the situation and, come to conclusions. Particularly, like, I had a debate with Dave Smith a little while back, and one of the sticking points he kept trying to sort of end off with was, ultimately, we have to ask ourselves, does Israel have to do this? Like, he's looking at the optics. It's always horrible. It's always difficult to watch, especially a war like this that's kind of unprecedented.
Well, from Israel's perspective, there's an existential threat based on there being a billion folks that aren't apparently big fans, right? I understand there's moderate Muslims, but the ones that want Israel gone are not moderate, and it is a very large and significant amount of governments and people, which causes them to be at a point of existential threat. And when somebody continues to shoot rockets at you from a 6 or 7 front war, it can definitely color your perceptions, right?
It can
cause issues. Again, go ahead.
I think a lot of people are asking the question, how is this war going to end? I think is the right question. How is it going to finish?
Well, a lot of people think it's a quarterfinal match for World War III, right? That's what they're saying. But I'm pretty sure it's going to stay regional. It doesn't seem to have that potential to blow up. But then, 1963, the Bay of Pigs could have been the thing that blew it up. But we're a long way past that now. But it could be just the catalyst.
I think the main superpowers like China and Russia don't really want to get involved in that entire regional war. They have their own issues at the moment, especially Russia.
Well, and there's a lot of assets that are in the Middle East that everybody wants. So it's like, do you blow up the toy box that's got all the resources? Like, that's probably not the best way to do it. You might not like the people who are sitting on that piece of land, but you might need resources from them. So acting with some amount of prudence might be the best idea. So.
Unprecedented and how much it's been broadcast on such a wide scale, not just in mainstream news, but social media. And his question ultimately is, does Israel have to do this? And recently this came up again. He's like Israel doesn't have to do this. And then we had a Twitter exchange and I was like, well, ultimately, if it can be demonstrated to you that Israel does have to do this, then you might be more pro-Israel than you think. It might just be a choice between bad and worse. But for you, looking at it from your perspective with your background, seeing what's going on in Gaza and seeing,
I think his bona fides, all bona fides, and his CV pretty much indicate his opinion should have some pretty serious weight, right?
I think especially from a military point of view.
Right, as far as the military operations. But remember, part of the military operation is assessing civilian issues, casualties, infrastructure, and problems like that, right? It's part of any offensive operations order that gets generated is going to have in its execution portion of that operations order, be it just a little one, right, that's affecting, say, a platoon or company, or one that affects a division size element as they go in to do whatever they're going to do, right? Across the board, at least for most Western style countries who have these operations orders like the U.S. Army and the U.S. Marine Corps, the 5-paragraph operations order is functionally the thing they use, and civilian concerns specifically is a portion of that planning, right? It is taken into account, but understand that it's war, and war is always messy, especially when you have combatants that are embedding themselves in civilian populations, right? It's like trying to get bed bugs out of your friggin' sheets. It's but
let's see what he's operational thinking, what he thinks after the operation. It's very interesting.
The destruction, you're seeing what's happened and how Israel's conducted itself over the last 18 months. Are there no other options? Does Israel have to do this? Dave said they could send in special forces. They could do that. And I'm like, what do you think they do? Like, I have a cousin who went in to try to rescue hostages. Like, what do you think that is? So can you just shed some light on that as somebody who sees the situation? Like, what do you see?
Yeah, this is the part where I get into what I refer to as people conducting Excel spreadsheet warfare, which is to say that they take two military forces or two combatant forces, and they kind of like add up within the various columns the manpower and equipment and training and technology and all these other things, and then they compare it to another one, and then when you look at those two columns, you're like, oh my gosh, this side is just like overwhelmingly more powerful than this side. Why is it requiring all this devastation in order to conduct operations? But the problem is that we're not talking about two columns on Excel spreadsheets fighting. We're talking about flesh and blood human beings. And then we're also talking about things like asymmetric warfare. So Hamas is very much aware that the IDF can kick the living hell out of them. Like, they know this. Right? They're not confused. They didn't go in on October 7th thinking, yes, and after this, Jerusalem will fall and all the, they didn't think that. And so you have to look at, like, okay, if Hamas understands that conducting operations in a particular way is going to generate a response, what is their objective? What are they trying to achieve? And the other thing that you've got to take into account is the example I like to use. Okay, like I will give you, I don't say this to be, I'm not saying this to try to be like braggadocious or anything like that, but I'll just list off some of my training just so people have a frame of reference for what I've gone through. So I've been through infantry training, airborne training, air assault training, EMT training, sniper training, Ranger School, Special Forces Qualification course, SFAUC, which is Special Forces Urban Assault course. I've also been through SFARDIC, which is a premier close quarters battle and hostage rescue course. I've been through, close air support training, and I've been to combat.
Did you know that Dave Smith opened for Skankfest?
So the only reason I say that is because I understand something about the training that goes into it. And if you put me on an Excel spreadsheet against a 14-year-old boy with an AK-47, there's no question who wins that fight, right? But now you put the 14-year-old boy firing through a second-story roof, right? And as I'm walking down the middle of the street with or not the middle of the street, but on the side of the street, right? Like I'm walking down tactically, I'm following all the rules. The problem is there's one way to walk down, right? Like there's no secret cloaking device that I possess.
Yeah. He gets forced into a thing called a fatal funnel. Anytime you get forced into a situation like that, when you're doing military operation, urban terrain, and fighting in that kind of urban environment, there's a fatal funnel. Like there's a place where you have to go to get to where you have to go, and it is defended. Like it's a hard point of defense, right? So
a very old military tactic, very old military tactic, or a lot of people used to call it a kill box, pretty much.
Right, it's an ambush setup that's not good. And it's the kill box.
But he's right. Like as well qualified as he is, as he said, a 14-year-old down at the end with an AK-47 has the possibility of taking him out.
Oh yeah, and a high possibility at that point, because it's the kill box. Like you just throw bullets in the box, and you're probably going to hit somebody. So here we go.
And bullets still kill me. Well, yeah, that 14-year-old kid now spraying AK-47 rounds down that narrow, corridor. I might lose that fight. Why? Because that's asymmetric warfare, right? He's not coming right out and challenging me to a duel. He's putting himself in the best position to be able to take advantage of his situation and also take advantage of the limitations I have with respect to how to get to where I need to go.
So just to clarify, because this was used in my conversation with Dave, it was a debate, but he used, you're right, this is an asymmetric war. But when you say asymmetric, you don't mean a power differential, you mean a values differential, right?
Well, no, there's two things. There's a power differential in the sense that if I've got to fight you and I'm significantly weaker than you, then what I'm looking for is how do I put you in a situation where I can balance out the odds, right? Well, again, there's a reason why after October 7th, Hamas wasn't launching, raids into Jerusalem, right? Why? Well, because they would have gotten their ass kicked. So what are they doing? Well, okay, I've done something which I know is going to generate a response. And what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to try to get you to come into places for which I have an advantage. And again, if you've got to clear buildings, which is one of the most dangerous things to do, urban
warfare is disgusting. And it's not like they were going to, hop on their motorcycles and bongo trucks and go run over to Jerusalem and try and liberate the West Bank.
No, that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
I think also Hamas was also betting on other Arab countries backing after that time as well.
And then they wouldn't have happened also if it didn't get support from Iran, right? Right, and then it's just like Iran's issue they have now, where they expected the Houthis, Hamas, PLO, and lots of others to come and support them on the ground in Iran, and everybody's like, no, because once Syria fell
at the moment.
Right, once Syria fell and that anti-aircraft embankments and emplacements were out of the picture, now Israel's got free reign to bootsy on over and drop hate,
Yeah, I was actually surprised there was very little response from the Iranian military that time. Very little response, air defense-wise or anything, really. Yeah. Very surprised.
Combat is one of the most dangerous, environments. Well, then I can set up all sorts of scenarios where your training, your equipment, your night vision, all that stuff has now been mitigated to some degree, right? It's no longer, it's still there, it's still a factor, but now I've mitigated it because you've got to walk down the road. And if you're actually concerned about civilian casualties, oh gosh, now I've got this whole other environment that I can now create where I've got a bunch of civilians, or I've got a bunch of fighters and civilians basically wearing the same sort of like clothing, civilian clothing, what makes someone a non-combatant versus a combatant?
We don't
Right.
know.
In that scenario, especially when you're fighting an enemy that they don't look at it the same way you do, that's the asymmetric component in values.
Right.
Well, if they don't consider arming the 14-year-old or the 12-year-old or the 8-year-old, or if they don't consider hiding behind them to be immoral or wrong, and
that's a means justify the ends problem, right? So there's a thing that, go ahead.
A lot of paramilitary forces have used the same tactics all over the last couple of centuries. Hiding civilian populations. It's form of warfare that we
well, it's an ethical failing
in our neck of the woods.
Right. Well, and they don't comply with Geneva Convention. Right. They just don't. And their crime, their war on Israel is functionally a hate crime. It's a hate crime war. Right. We are going to because
as I said, there's hate on both sides there for centuries.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Not big fans.
Very, very ancient conflict. Very ancient conflict.
And here's the key part. This is something that I've brought up before that I've never personally seen Dave address. And if the outside world is going to punish me as the guy that's trying to just go after combatants, that's all I'm interested in. I don't want to hurt the 12-year-old girl. I don't want to hurt the 14-year-old boy. I just want to go after combatants. But if every time my enemy puts a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or an 8-year-old into a situation where they get killed, my enemy gets punished, even though I'm the one that put him in that situation. Well, now you've provided an incentive for me to do that. And this is the part that...
Yeah, the moral failing has been incentivized, right? Plus it gives them PR, plus UNRWA runs that by the UN, and it snowballs. And at this point, I think Israel's like we don't care. We're tired of getting blamed for something you are doing, and we're going to go ahead and run our program the way we run it. So get bent. Like everybody, you can be unhappy, but this is how it's going to go. And understanding that how many resolutions are passed by the UN in relation to Israel, which is 2 or 3 times that of every other country in the world. Just not any one other country, but every other country in the world. But all those things they pass at the UN are not the kind of thing that they can enforce. It's like a strongly worded letter that says, we're real unhappy, but it's not one of those resolutions they pass where the entire UN says, you need to stop doing this, right? So it's all PR stunts and bullshit for show, right?
Yeah, but there also has to address the issue that we all know that young soldiers make mistakes as well when it comes to this kind of warfare. On both sides, by the way.
Oh, but, for sure.
Yeah, and I understand that there's a lot of anger still. There'll probably, for years to come, a lot of anger in Israel over October.
Well, and if Hamas would lay down their arms and give back the hostages, it would be over.
Yeah.
Immediately. If Israel lays down their arms and just rolls over, they're dead. That is functionally an existential threat. You can agree or disagree with whomever, but that is literally the case. That is what that looks like.
Do you see Hamas surrendering anytime soon? Or
I don't know that they'll surrender. They might just cease to exist functionally. But the thing is, as long as there are still hostages being held, then there's still an issue, right?
And do you think most of these hostages that are left, do you think they're still in the land of the living, as they say?
I don't know what percentage of them are alive.
Yeah.
But humans are sturdy animals. We're built for it. So I don't...
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So anyway, all right, let's let Nick cook.
I'm looking at some of these people going, if you were that concerned about civilian casualties, I have no problem with you critiquing things that the IDF does and asking questions on whether they could do it better or whether they could be more surgical. But you also have to ask the questions is the civilian body count, first of all, are we really getting accurate numbers from Hamas? Secondly,
probably not.
Is the civilian body count really a reflection of Israel just not caring about what happens and doing whatever they want? Or is it a reflection of Hamas using very, very specific tactics in order to gain a particular advantage?
So the ratio of civilian to combatant deaths in the Gaza Strip is the lowest comparison, even lower than Mosul for the American forces when they were doing the Mosul push, right? So they are far exceeding the standards and doing the best they can to make warfare the least imposing as possible. But when Hamas decides to kill civilians that attempt to leave areas that Israel has said, hey, we're going to bomb this building, but if they attempt to leave the building, then Hamas kills them, like they're stuck, right?
Yeah.
So
as I said, there's no saints or sinner. There's no saints when it comes to war on either side.
Right, for sure. But if I
understand
tell
that.
you I'm going to bomb a building, you need to get out of the building, and those people who live in the building are disallowed by their current government to do that, then the people who are disallowing the egress from the building are the ones who are at fault for that, right? Because they've been given phone calls and leaflets, and they say, on this date, at this time, this is the thing we're going to do. And then they get killed. You know, it's Hobson's choice, right? It's a sword of Damocles.
Yeah.
I'm dying one way or the other. It's you know, yeah.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible war, actually. Really. I always feel sorry for the civilians when it comes to these horrible, bloody conflicts.
When you embed that element of soldier or paramilitary member within the civilian population, it's how that's going to end up. There isn't another way for it to go. So,
and one of the things that terrorist organizations, one of the things that enemies of the United States have used in the past, and I use the Tet Offensive as an example of this. You don't beat a military that is significantly better than you, right? What you do is you win the larger propaganda war, and you get the politicians in that country to pull the military back.
This was Vietnam, how it ended up?
Yes. The Tet Offensive was this massive defeat for the Viet Cong. It essentially wiped out the Viet Cong. But if you were to watch the news in America, you would have thought that, oh my gosh, we've all been lied to. And quite frankly, there were a lot of, misinformation.
Like Jesse Ventura, you ever heard of the Gulf of Tonkin?
the Gulf of Tonkin. That's how that thing started, with an errant round that went toward a boat in the water. Then all of a sudden the military-industrial complex winds up and we're all over Vietnam. So,
yeah. And unfortunately, Vietnam was a complete waste of human life on both sides, unfortunately.
Horrible.
What a massive.
Yeah, the French left, and we should have just left it alone after Dien Bien Phu.
Well,
the
French did kind of warn the Americans before they went full gung-ho into it.
Well, right.
This is not a good idea.
Right, but
we tried this. It hasn't worked for us.
Right.
Don't do this.
Right. When the French lost Dien Bien Phu, that should have been a wrap. We should have packed up our things and just left. We should let countries do their thing, right? Unless they present a threat on the world stage, that's an internal affair, But I guess we've decided as the United States to be the world's police force, right? Along with monitoring all the waterways. It's relieved itself recently, and there's more NATO countries that are monitoring, shipping lanes and stuff like that. So
yeah, I don't know. I've heard the whole shipping lanes thing over the last couple of years. All right.
Wait, did you see
a lot of European countries now are stepping up to the plate and just kind of nicely asking the U.S. military to
pound sand.
We have it from here, as they say.
There's been a couple boats that the Houthis have sunk as well. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, check that out. Like in the past few days, a couple of ships have gone belly up because some Houthis done shot them out the water. So it's about to get real exciting out there on the water. It's not going to be like a slip and slide show or the old water park. It's going to get ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was problems, right? I'm not saying that, but the Tet Offensive was not a strategic victory for the Viet Cong.
Right.
It did become a massive propaganda victory.
And the public perception ultimately does decide politics.
Yes.
Once the threshold is too much.
Yes. And especially in representative governments.
Right.
In representative government, you defeat the voter, not the military, right?
All right. So let us push up to 44.
We hear a lot of news coming out of Gaza. And I'm so ignorant on what the actual strategy of the IDF was. I mean, I know they made corridors and they cut the north and the south. I heard something about, combining airstrikes with tunnel warfare was an innovation. I mean, can you tell us anything about sort of what the grand strategy has been and how they've conducted it?
Well, I think the grand strategy is essentially to degrade Hamas so much to the point where it cannot be a viable political element within the region anymore. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it would be nice if they could just pick off some senior staff and that would be enough. Mm-hmm. But again, I think we have to also keep in mind that when Hamas won their first election and then started throwing their political opponents off of buildings, it's not as if the UN and everyone else stopped sending money, right? And so now you have a terrorist organization that gets to use the money that you send for aid relief, for anything from munitions to tunnel construction to educating a whole new generation of people to believe that their highest possible aspiration is to die in jihad.
So there's an excessive moral failure there that for some reason the West has decided to continue to support. So when Fatah lost in 2005, was it 2000? I think it was 2005, right? No, is that the right year?
No.
What year did?
Yeah, but 2004, 2005. Yeah, you're
Right.
right.
Okay. So they lost power within a year to Hamas, and like he was saying, they were throwing the Fatah leaders off of roofs. They were killing them like to a man. Right.
Yeah.
I don't understand why at that point we didn't stop aid and go, you can't just be out there killing folks. You know what I'm saying? Like, deport them out of your country, send them away, but killing them is not appropriate. Like, that is a moral or ethical failing that we should not, as Western countries who have decided to financially support some of these organizations and peoples, like that's not a thing that we should stand for, right? Like, we should not be on the side of that. That is inappropriate action or activity, right?
Yeah, I think what happens to an awful lot of people is they're trying to do good in a region where good is in very short supply. And I think in the West, we have a very naive view of this entire region. Through lack of understanding of history or just turning a blind eye to an awful lot of the evil that goes on in a lot of these countries.
Well, it's a goal set thing. Like, we don't understand their goal set and the things that they're willing to sacrifice to achieve those goals. It's because it's a thing that you or I would probably not do, right? Or in all likelihood would never even consider. They're doing things and thinking things, and their processes are so far outside of our thought processes that we don't even consider it, right? But then we see example after example.
I don't think we just don't consider it. I think we just turn a blind eye to it because we just see the pictures, we see the videos, we see all the TikTok videos, all
right. Well,
they're
doing the bad thing. Yeah, they're doing the bad thing, and we're like, well, they couldn't possibly be doing the bad thing for X reason when they say death to Israel, death to America, and then they're doing the things to show that's the thing they want. So then why would we support an entity that's like, we want to kill you, here's some money, I'm not going to give you resources to hurt me? That seems insane.
Yeah.
And so Israel finds themselves in a position where, again, they have a neighbor that is absolutely determined to kill Jews. And so what do you do with that? Right. And so I think that's their overall, the grand strategy overall is to, again, just wipe out Hamas, but also send a message that there's no more of this. There's no more of this proportionality where it's, okay, if you kill 2 of mine, I'm going to kill or capture 3 or 4 of yours. Right. It's nope. You've reached a threshold now to where we're going to wipe you out. Right. There, for instance, we didn't do proportional strikes against Nazi Germany. We didn't do proportional strikes against, Japan. We went to war for the purpose of, we're winning this thing. And I think that's where Israel is at with respect to Hamas. Now, for the people that say, well, clearly this is, genocide or apartheid or whatever else.
We went over that in videos as well. There's very specific meanings for those words, and they're being used incorrectly, and they're being used functionally as a blood libel against Israel, and that is unacceptable.
I think it's, as I say, it's not genocide. Is it a war crime in times of war?
Maybe.
Yes, it is.
The war crime of Hamas attacking into Israel like they were and killing civilians.
On both sides, by the way. Let me finish there. I was going to say on both sides, there's war crimes being carried out on both sides. By the way,
you think the IDF is committing war crimes?
I don't say they're committing war crimes, but under international law, war crimes is if any civilians are killed during times of war. But unfortunately, if that's the case, every country who's at war in times of war will be guilty of the same crime.
Right, but that's based on an intent thing. Remember, both those things are an intent thing, right? If I do not intend to kill civilians, but if then the enemy forces put civilians in front of things, I can't control them. So the violation is actually on Hamas's side for forcing the IDF when it is known there is conflict that they initially started, right? Like, I'm not going to stop fighting the war because you're committing war crimes, right?
Yes. As I say, at the end of the day, we all know that this is going to be a very bloody conflict, and it's going to be at least another year and a half, maybe shorter, but I would say a year and a half before it's all wrapped up in some kind of conclusion.
Right, but it's the Middle East, so it's never going to actually be concluded. It's going to be like a very bad romance novel that doesn't stop. but not very romantic at all.
No.
I have a hard time buying that, because if that was true, well, then why aren't they doing similar things in the West Bank? If that was true, why are they calling ahead to any of the targets that they strike? So I don't think it's fair. Again, genocide is a particular word that has a particular meaning. And if we're just going to broaden it to include everything we don't like, well, then it loses its effect, or it should. But that's, again, as far as the tactical on the ground strategy for, integration of airstrikes with respect to tunnel warfare, there's a lot that they're doing there that is innovative and creative. My head that would be the equivalent of what Hamas has done in Gaza. That's not to say it doesn't exist. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now.
Right. Yeah. And I was going to say that, it's certainly not comparable possibly to sort of modern engagements that we've seen. But what do you think of this idea that we had a conversation a while back with someone else about the idea of long-lasting peace through negotiation versus victory? And that most often, especially in Israel's case, the long-lasting peace they have with neighbors were through overwhelming victory. Hold on, it looks like there's a connection issue here, but we're through victory, not through negotiation. So, like, if you look back to the insurgency math thing, when you have overwhelming force to accomplish a goal and win a war, you need to accomplish that first before you can negotiate anything. Because, like you said, leaving things in place, they're not all of a sudden to say, okay, cool, I guess they acted with restraint. Now we're pro-Israel and we're not going to attack again.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that if you leave Hamas in place at all, then you're just going to find yourselves in this situation as well. And most time you'll get a little bit of breathing room, and then that's it. It's right back to it. And so that's the reason why I think they've engaged in the sort of operations they have in Gaza. This is not about this is not about a proportional response and then ultimately getting the hostages back. I think that they've realized that the only way that there's any pathway forward to where they don't occupy Gaza permanently is the administration in Gaza is going to have to be one that at the very least doesn't have let's destroy Israel and kill all the Jews in their charter.
So part of the occupation thing is a little bit errant there. So Israel cannot occupy Gaza, right?
Okay.
Do you know why that is?
Well, no matter, I have a feeling I think it's under some international treaty somewhere along the line.
Okay. So there's an understanding, not a treaty, that says that the Jews are going to leave Gaza to its own devices, right? So from 1948 until 1967, the area was controlled by Egypt, right? It was managed.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Right. So in 1967, Israel went back in there, right? But at all times since 1948, since the lines were drawn, the entirety of the Gaza is considered to be a part of Israel per the UN, right? When the lines were drawn in 1948, the Gaza Strip and the West Bank were both and are still, in fact, a part of international recognized territory for Israel, right? It's like Crimea and the Donbass in Ukraine. The reason the Russians are occupying it is because it falls within the line or the land that is considered by the UN to be Ukrainian land, right? So Israel can't actually occupy Gaza. It is their land, right?
Well, I think what he's trying to say when he's talking about occupation is securing it after the war with some kind of military or police force.
Right.
It's going to be an absolute nightmare.
Right, but I wanted to make sure that that distinction was understood, like that's what that means specifically. So here we go.
Which I think is a fairly reasonable, objective to attain. Yeah, and you're not going to attain it through, sanctions. You're not going to attain it through, being nice.
So do you think that Israel's going to have to win this thing so that they can dictate terms as opposed to attempt to negotiate from a place of weakness?
I think eventually, I think Israel, and I think both sides are going to be dragged to the negotiation table. I think eventually.
Well, somebody from the outside is going to have to do that, but for Hamas,
I can see that happening.
Right, but for Hamas to recognize anything, so there have been multiple attempts at two-state solutions and all these kinds of things where anybody on the other side of the table from Israel is like, we don't accept it. Not only do we not accept it, we don't recognize that Israel is a sovereign nation. Right? If someone fails to recognize you're a sovereign nation, then they're not going to treat with you anyway. And it's kind of a way to sideways step out of it and say, I don't recognize them as a country with sovereignty. So since they have no sovereignty, I will not treat with them.
But I think, as I say, at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those peace negotiations that both sides are not going to be happy with. That's eventually what's going to happen.
Right,
That's
but
what
if
usually
Israel
happens in the
wins and
Middle East.
can dictate terms, then it would probably be better for their consideration as far as an existential threat and mitigating it.
Oh yeah, but I think unfortunately, whatever's going to happen in the Gaza Strip at the end of this conflict, it's going to be. I think it's left a lasting mark on the Middle East when it comes to Israel.
For sure, sure.
Because October was a line that was crossed.
Yep.
And Israel afterwards has forever been changed. They won't put up with any form of aggression anymore.
Right. Any ill behavior will be met with force, for sure.
Yes.
If that was true, I mean, Israel left Gaza, right? Israel was occupied at one point. There were settlements. Israel went in, destroyed their own settlements, moved people out. Did that mean Hamas,
including their dead,
came in and said, gosh, I guess these Israelis are okay after all? No. By the same token, not to say that there aren't problems in the West Bank with Fatah and everything else, there certainly are. And I think most people don't recognize that to this day, even though the IDF took back Jerusalem in the 6-Day War, Jews are still not, I mean, except in like very, very limited capacity, Jews are not even allowed to visit the most sacred place for them in their religion, which is the Temple Mount. And to the extent that they are allowed to visit it under very, very close watch, they're not allowed to do anything that would look like praying, reading, the Torah, they're not allowed to do the Tanakh, nothing. Right?
Well, we wouldn't want to upset anybody, Nick. You know, so we just stay on the wall.
But the point is that Israel's not doing this in the West Bank. They're just doing it in Gaza. Is this because Fatah is like, you know what? Israel's like, no. But they've at least taken on a strategy and approach where they're nowhere near as violent as Hamas is. And so I think the other thing that is potentially going on here is Israel demonstrating that once you cross certain lines, that's it. We will bring everything to bear. And part of the reason why Egypt and Saudi Arabia and other countries are not getting involved is, one, they're worried about the U.S., but two, they also understand the problem. Because a lot of these regimes have also had to deal with terrorist elements within their own country that try to.
So Jerusalem is broken up into A, B, and C areas, and in certain areas it's Jews, in certain areas it's Arabs, and in some of the places it's both, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a slight mischaracterization, but understanding that there are places even in Jerusalem, especially the Temple Mount, where Jews are not allowed, like he said, unless it's closely supervised, and they cannot show any outward signs of practicing religion, right? Which is something very, very foreign to the Western world. Like, if you want to go celebrate your religion, go do your thing, worship your God, right? But they're being restricted from that on the Temple Mount, and that is.
And don't know when Christians go over and visit Jerusalem, are they allowed to pray openly and so on?
They're not going to be allowed to the Temple Mount to do it.
Okay.
Right? Because they'll be closely watched. And if they do the thing and they look like they're celebrating their religion, they're worshiping their God, they'll be asked to leave. Like, you got to go. Yeah. But the Temple Mount is more a thing for Judaism.
Yes.
Some Old Testament stuff too, but more for Judaism.
A lot of Old Testament stuff.
Yeah. Strangely enough, right? Just that's weird, right?
Destabilize their governments. So they kind of get it, right? They're going to have to say what they have to say, but they also kind of get it. I'm hoping Fatah also gets it, right? Where they're looking at this going, okay, yeah, there is a threshold that you cannot cross. Otherwise it's, the jig is up.
And people watching in the West, I mean, there's always, it seems to be such a privileged position to say that you can just be anti-war as a concept, just being anti-war. And I'm always like looking at that argument, like,
that is a super luxury belief, right? Very luxury belief. I don't like war. We shouldn't just ought to do it. Really? You must be pretty comfortable in your living room watching that TV. Something.
Well, they should really kind of look at world news every now and again. By the way, I'm talking about outside of the Israeli conflict at the moment. Look at just the whole world in general. Look at the whole African continent, or
the Uyghurs in China,
other countries even in the Middle East at the moment.
How about Ukraine? You know what I mean? There might be something going on in Ukraine that's pretty aggressive too, right? Yeah.
I'm just saying, we all love the concept that we all could hold hands and sing kumbaya, but in the reality of the real world, unfortunately, in time to
like.
come, there will be more and more wars, more conflicts around the
Oh
world.
yeah, well, I like campfires and s'mores too, but the reality is that some people have a different design on what they want, and if you're in their way, they'll take you out. It's just the reality of the situation in the world, bud.
Enemies that decide when it's time for war. And you can be as anti-war as you want. If your enemies don't agree with you, then it's time for war, But I can understand also there's a PTSD that goes on for bad military decisions that the United States has made over the years that kind of get imposed. It's sort of like, I look at it like, you have Iraq over here. You have other decisions that have been made where maybe it was the wrong diagnosis or the wrong strategy, but that doesn't mean when you discover the right strategy, you just ignore it because you're anti-war.
Oh yeah, no. Well, and again, I mean, I'm going to say this right now: anti-war is a nice dream, but it's a childish position to take, because if you say anti-war in the sense that I will not take any measures to defend myself, even when attacked, okay, well, I mean, evolution's going to take its course then.
Yeah.
Total facts. 100%. 100%.
There's no such thing as a utopia on Earth, as they say.
What? Come on.
We are violent creatures by nature.
It is a fact.
Disagree with me when I say that, but just look at our history, all through history, Jesus.
Right. All right.
When I see these,
go ahead.
When I see these young people on and on and on about peace and love and holding hands, it's a great concept.
Right.
It doesn't happen in the real world.
All right. We're going to finish it up with don't confuse ignorance with hate.
People can be wrong, can be mistaken, and don't confuse curiosity with hate. Don't confuse ignorance with hate. I think oftentimes in a sensitive environment we're in, we get very hypersensitive to that, especially given what's been happening over the last year and a half in the Jewish community and what's going on in Israel. Like it's hard not to be reactionary sometimes when like the temperature is high. But I think it's really important to recognize, the forest for the trees and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, especially when people are bringing a lot of value to these dialogues and conversations, and to be emotionally reactive is not helpful or productive.
Yeah.
So Nick Freitas was actually on Trigonometry talking about this. And I think that Mr. Amy Kazak here is on point when he says, if we can have discourse about this and talk about it and get these things out there so people can see them in an unregulated, non-standard, like non-traditional type media, like podcasts and the like then people are going to be much more well informed, right? It looks like
people should also start looking up their own information. Like we have fantastic tools at our disposal.
Right, you have a friggin' supercomputer in your pocket. If you don't know, it's kind of on you. And if you spout wild shit, and you're like, well, I believe this is true. Well, give me something of evidentiary value that isn't, I'm righteous and wrong, right? Because I believe a thing, it's true. Like that doesn't work with stuff like this, because there's real people and real death and real bad things going on. And if you just want to say wild things and then you don't even know why you're saying them, might be a propaganda problem wherever you might be, right? Your little echo chamber. So,
I agree.
I think we're coming to, that was a really great conversation, Nick. Thank you for shedding light on. Michael, any final thoughts, questions? What did we not get to?
This is the rare conversation we actually covered everything we wanted to cover. This is amazing.
It was incredibly thorough. Nick, thank you so much for your time. It's nice to have some informed, use the dirty word, expertise on some of these things. But yeah, Nick knows things. He's been places we haven't been. We've never been. But it's certainly really, really enlightening to hear your perspective, and we appreciate your time and all the things you've been outspoken about over last year and then some. So where can we find you, and what's the future for Nick Freitas here?
Sure. Well, again, we try to make it easy. You can just find me at Nick J. Freitas. So that's our tag on YouTube, X, Facebook, pretty much everywhere. And we do a couple of shows. We do one called Making the Argument. We do another one called the Y Minutes. And then we've been doing this episode called Doge Watch ever since the Department of Government Efficiency was set up. And that's been a lot of fun. We were just at the White House. We were just at the White House interviewing people up there. So yeah, you can kind of find us everywhere, just by looking for Nick J. Freitas.
And do you see the golden age of America coming, or is it starting to fracture already? I mean, Canada just had a loss, which was like, I feel like I want to stay optimistic here that we're still on the right track.
Oh, I'm more optimistic about Canada now than I've ever been.
Oh, really?
Carbon tax Carney got in there. Anyway, so you guys check out Nick J. Freitas. Dude's amazing.
Absolutely fantastic.
He and his
really
wife,
good.
the Queen Bee, on all his podcasts. He also has the Oracle of Virginia, which is his political prognosticator guy. He's a pretty smart dude. So they come with some really good takes, and they're pretty smart about it. And they take a balanced approach to things. It isn't like we're the Republican side and we're right. No. He's like, here's the balanced argument. Here's what this looks like. Here's what the opposition side says to this. This is what the Democrats say. This is what the far-leaning left. Like, he brings all those things into play. So I'm pretty impressed with Mr. Freitas. And
I even noticed that just looking up a couple of his videos when I knew we were doing this. He's very, very balanced point of view.
And I respect him as a veteran. So should thank him for his service to the NATO plan, as it will. So anyway, everybody, for Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson, and the A&P Gents are out. Thanks for watching. Ring the bell, subscribe, do the likey likes. We'll catch you later.